My name is Rick. I am half Korean adoptee born in Incheon. I was raised in the United States, but I now live here in Seoul.
I'm gonna ask you more personal.
Okay, 괜찮아요.
When did you get to know you were adopted?
I was 16 years old when I found out I was adopted. I found out sort of accidentally. Saw some information about myself on some documents my mother had. And so I knew then is called, I guess, a late discovery adoptee. Most adoptees know from very early on, and I was a teenager. At the time, I didn't know very much about Korea, anything about language. I had never had Korean food. All these things happened after.
How did it feel like when you first saw that document?
It was a lot. I didn't have a lot of time to process. When you're a teenager and a lot of things were happening in my life, it's kind of hard to parse what I felt about finding out I was adopted versus just how I was feeling generally. I mean, I think that I felt for a little while like I was unsure who I was as a person because suddenly I was finding out all this stuff about me I didn't know. It made me question for a little while my own identity.
What actually made you come to Korea?
So my wife's job brought us here. I never imagined that I would be living in Korea.
Was it your first time?
No, so my first time was 2019. I was here for about a week. I have an older sister. We're not related, but we were adopted by the same parents. I found out that I was adopted at the same time I found out that she was adopted, but we're both half Korean and half black. We could conceivably be related to see us together. She filmed a TV show in the United States. It was mainly like a cooking show. They shot some here in Korea about her story and how Korean food has affected her life. And so that was my first time. It was after that trip that I started studying, learning language, taught myself how to read Hangul. Then I actually started taking language classes when we were living in Belgium.
Was there one of the reasons why you came here for your first?
No, it's not why I came, but it's something that is ongoing. Even before we came, I tried an actual search with the agencies here. I think either the name that we have for her or perhaps her ID number are falsified because with that information that I have, they did a search, but they couldn't find anybody. Yeah, I think someone along the way gave or wrote the wrong information, whether she did it to protect her own identity. I know it's a thing that has happened with a lot of adoptees that the name of their family members is wrong or why they were given up for adoption, where they were found. All that stuff can be and has been falsified. I'm not optimistic that we'll be able to find her, but fingers are crossed.
Just with pure curiosity, most of adoptees try to find their parents, but I wonder why.
Everyone's reasoning is different. The reasons are varied. You know, some of them were 4 years old, 5 years old, and old enough to remember, and so they have this part of them that has been missing. Some are just curious about where they come from. When I started looking for both my birth mother and father, because I wanted to know about my medical history, because we don't know where we came from. So I did a DNA test in the US that tells you just a very, very little bit about what you might be at risk for. But through testing like that is how I found my birth father. And he told me, some stuff about him having illnesses that he has had. That helps both for me and also for my daughter.
So you found actually your birth?
Yeah, he was here in Korea with the Army, US Army. He didn't know that he had a son.
Really?
Yeah. As far as I understand it, he went back to the US before I was born, and I think he wouldn't have known even that my mother was pregnant. They didn't have any contact after that. I didn't actually think that I would find him, but because Americans are a little bit more open to the idea of doing DNA tests than other countries around the world, because it's not a big thing here in Korea, right?
So you're still being in touch with him?
Yeah, we don't have a very close relationship, and mainly because I wasn't looking for another father. I really wanted to know where I came from.
Do you also feel you belong to Korea?
Not quite yet. I know a lot of adoptees who do, but I think because for them, they've lived most of their lives knowing that they were adopted, knowing that they're Korean. A vast majority of Korean adoptees are fully Korean and were adopted by white Americans, right? It's visibly apparent, right, that they're adopted. And so, but I think my connection with Korea didn't start until I was a teenager, and so maybe by the end of our time here, I'll feel a little bit more like that.
How would you describe yourself when it comes to identity? Did you find?
I discovered that while being adopted has informed a lot of my identity, it didn't create a new identity. The people in my life that I loved and the people that that love me. Like that didn't change. The things that I liked doing in my free time, the things I liked doing at school, those things didn't change. But in the moment, it made me think that I was like a different person because what I thought about where I came from was different. But I know that that's not really the case. It's like the people in your life that help make you who you are. And so when I introduce myself to people, especially when I do it in Korean, I mention that I'm 인천에서 태어난 반한국 사람 입양인, right? And I want to let them know that I'm part Korean. I was at an expo at COEX, and I met two Koreans. We were talking, and I mentioned that I was half Korean, and they said, "No, there's no half Korean. You're Korean." And I know that's not necessarily something that everyone believes, but it made me feel like I belong. It will forever be a part of my identity, but it's not strictly who I am.
If you in your person, like, what would you say?
Oh.
Ask.
이름이 어떻게 되세요? I'd want to know like what led to, like, how did we get here? You know, I want to know from her perspective what happened and why.
Even though it would be like bad.
Yeah, and I think I'm prepared for that. I've heard a lot of stories from adoptees, and I know that sometimes it's the parents didn't have the means to raise a child. I mean, there's not much that she could say about that would make me hesitate to ask.
You're still trying to find your mom.
Yeah.
Hope you find it.
Yeah.
Ask her her name.
I say I'm crossing my fingers, but I'm not holding my breath.